I'm just wanting to help you, and then if you do pick one that I send you, I just ask that you put my name down, because I understand that we're working with XYZ, but just make sure that, because that's the only way that we get paid, and you can only put one locator down, so.
I have a form letter and then also a text message that I would send people when I see there's a conflict, because sometimes, you start on an apartment thing, and then like 2 days later, all of a sudden there's a conflict up there. So a lot of times I'll send them a note saying, oh, it looks like you're working with this, person, whatever. And, so I'll just, I'm not going to move forward unless you tell me that you still need my help.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
And sometimes it's just like they just don't get it, that was a problem. And actually I just got a lease that's going to move in on Friday. It was a girl moving from Mexico, and she's like, and I had to send her that message because I started. And right before I went to go send it, because I was busy doing other stuff, and back in there, now I'm like, oh, now there's a conflict. Okay, great. So I sent her a little note saying, I see that, this is whatever. And in that case, I said, well, I'm already, in my message, let her know, I've already done this, so I'm going to go ahead and send this to you. But if you're working with somebody else, just, let me know that you don't need my help.
Well,
and
then
then
she's situation where you and I are all working with the same lady.
That was another.
It's like, okay, I'll put that.
She responded back and said, oh, I didn't know. No, I'm not working with them, I'm staying with you. So, and I just look at it like, kind of like, I'm not going to worry to death over this person deciding that they.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm thinking, people when they're ready to move, that's not as bad as buying a house, but it's stressful. And they're like, I don't know if this person's going to help me or not, and they're just like, if they said they would.
Yeah.
They don't know.
That's true. They don't know.
And they know that they have to move.
Exactly.
And so they're kind of a little bit desperate. So
Yeah.
I try not to get mad at them.
Definitely so.
Like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to move to the next person. But I don't waste a lot of time worrying about them either, because I'm like, either you're working with me or not, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Be a little bit flaky sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because, it's a big decision for them. To me, it's just another apartment search, another email to send, and a phone call to make. It's not as big a deal to me as it is to them.
That's
so
true.
I'm like, okay,
I guess consistency and follow-up would be the key with that. Because if you're being inconsistent, then they're not going to probably stay with you. Whereas if Cindy, right? Brenda, I'm sorry, you're Cindy. If Brenda is being real consistent, they're not being more inclined to just stay with her.
Exactly. And if you make it personal, like you can, after you speak with them on the phone, you can even, if you're okay with doing video, you can shoot like a quick video text and just introduce yourself. So you can say, hey, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I'm looking forward to working with you. Here's my contact information if you have any questions. And that way they kind of feel a little bit more comfortable with you as a person versus just saying I spoke to someone on the phone and then they never contacted me back ever again and you're just a name on the screen versus an actual person that's helping them. So I find that also helps too. Or even just, like I said, consistent follow-up with them, because some of them need to move right away, and then some are like, they take their time, and you have to follow up with them for weeks on end, and maybe 2 months, and then they say, oh, I'm putting it on hold, call me back in another month, and you call them back and they're finally ready. So you just have to have that consistent follow-up, and that's really the most important thing. Doing the searches is important, but the follow-up is where you're going to get your money at, because that's where you're going to find out if people leased. And they're not going to always lease the very first time you send them a list. That's very rare that happens, but you usually have to send them a list, follow up, revise the list sometimes, send them, do some more follow up, and just stay in touch with them until they do something. But it's literally rinse, lather, repeat, and do the same thing. But if you keep it simple and keep the process going, then it just kind of works.
About texting, a lot of people, like in the younger generation, they would rather text than speak on the phone. So, and also when you do the text, no matter what, add your name and company name so that when they go somewhere, they have your information right there on their phone. So you just drill it into them to make sure that they put your name down on there, but you're also texting them with your name and company name so they know to put that on the
Application.
page, the application, whatever, whenever they go to look at apartments.
It's true.
Just so we would add that.
Yeah, that's really a good point. And then as you start calling the properties to check availability, if you go ahead and tell that leasing agent their client's name and say, hey, I'm checking availability for a client, her name is Sinque, keep an eye out for her and make sure she puts my name down and put that bug in their ear, then they'll be more inclined to make sure to ask Like they're gonna, typically they ask, but every once in a while you might have a temp agent or they just are lazy or complacent that day and they forget to ask. And then when they're doing their guest cards, they're like, crap, I forgot to put on anything on here. So they write drive-by, even though maybe they really didn't say that. Sometimes that happens. So you just want to make sure that it's on the guest card is the form that they fill out when they first view the community. The leasing agent will say, okay, who referred you? Then they write it down. And then when they do the application, there's just another spot for the name. So it has to be on both of those in order to get paid. So just make sure that, like in your email, it'll say, please make sure that my name is listed as the referral source on the guest card and the application, and let me know once you lease. And so just keep that kind of in your pocket of reminding them, so that way they know to do that.
So could we go in with them, like when they're signing a lease, to like really make sure that happens?
You could. I mean, it's not necessarily as time effective, but if you really wanted to, then you could. I mean, you could say, okay, when do you want to schedule a tour? And then if you're available, then you can meet them over there just to kind of go that extra mile for sure if you wanted to. And then just make sure that they do that. But I mean,
The time that you would almost have to be there is when they actually fill out an application, not necessarily the lease.
that's true.
But they're probably gonna fill out the application online too.
Maybe.
And they could, yeah.
Especially in this day of COVID, everything's online.
Yeah.
Virtual tours are online.
Yeah.
Some of my clients have done this. When they've done an online application, they email their leasing agent they were working with, and they copy me and tell them, hey, I just want to make sure you know that I filled this out and this is my locator, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's another little
Definitely.
thing that happened at the same time that they did the online thing, in case there was some sort of online
Exactly.
snafu.
Definitely, because that happens. I mean, I've had it happen to me even after 10 years. I still have it happen. So it's just a matter of just making sure you stay in communication with the properties, and then letting them know that you sent them, and just kind of stay in the loop.
Because they put it down on the card, they don't always come back to you and say, hey, I leased with, sometimes it's like a mystery, and you like, oh, okay.
Yes. So
You kind of have to keep after them and say, hey, you know, have you leased yet? Did you lease somewhere?
Yes,
And they
definitely
get tired
so.
of you, but
they'll be like, oh, I completely forgot to tell you, I just moved in. And you're like, yay. And so as you're doing your follow-ups every week, you'll start seeing people lease, and then, and we'll go over the whole process of once somebody leases to how you get the invoice and how to get paid. So we'll go through each of those things as well. But I wanted to kind of cover some of the ways to get your phone ringing, and then the questions to ask when you get the call. So I think that would be
I have a question about that. So I get calls when I'm driving, and they want to tell me all about their credit history and all this, and I can't take notes or anything like that. But we have a CRM. So my question is, what's the correlation between the CRM and the lead sheets? Because it's essentially the same questions.
It is, definitely so. And so
I want to direct them to the CRM.
So with that, whenever you have the CRM, you could send them a link typically sometimes with the questions, or you could have it like copy, you could take the questionnaire and just kind of have it as on your clipboard per se on your phone, and just paste it in there and ask them the questions. Either way, you could, there's ways that you can definitely.
We can kind of utilize it like our own personal website.
Yeah, per se, yeah, definitely so with that. So you can. Yeah, just say, yeah, that way they can fill that out and for sure, and figure out exactly what questions.
You just text them the link, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you just you can copy the link and paste it into your phone, into the message, and say, hey, fill out the questionnaire here, and then it'll go to your email so you can see exactly what they put on there.
Fill that out, and you'll get all that info.
Yeah, then you'll go to your email, and then you'll be able to see all their answers, and then you can do the search for them. But that way, at least have something for them to answer questions. Let's see, Miss Jerry says she created a contact on her phone with her picture, name, company, phone number, and email address that she sends. So you can just take your contact, and then you can share a contact, and all that information is there. So that's a great idea too.
I think you can put that link on that contact as well.
Probably, I bet you could. Yeah, you would put your link for the questionnaire on
Should put it
there.
on my card.
Yeah, you can certainly do that.
That's in retrospect.
All of those things can definitely help, so that way you can, because it's important because when you're driving, you want to be able to help them, but yet you can't be writing down all these notes while you're driving, or you might not make it to your destination to help them. So,
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Go.
Amber, I've not dealt with the Metroplex area, so do apartments most of them use their own individual applications, or are they kind of together and using the same application?
So, yeah, so there's a TAA, Texas Apartment Association application that they are going to use. And so it's standardized through the entire, I haven't seen any communities use their own. Most of them are going to be under the apartment association, so they're all the same. And so, when, in your database, when you're sending the listings, it has a little picture of what it looks like where they would put your name down. So you can actually, you could even take a picture of that and like show where your name needs to be, and so that way they can physically see, because sometimes it's hard to find it. It's like way over here on the right side, right above the emergency contact. It's not in a spot that's just like, oh, let me put my locator's name here. They have to really search for it sometimes. So if you show them like exactly like, hey, this is where it's going to be at that you need to put my name, then you can do that. Anyway, to kind of help them, to have to not to do as much work to find it.
Sometimes I thought I need to offer them something special. If whenever they're filling out an application or even online, if they take a picture of where they put my name and send it to me, like I'll send them something.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That's a great idea. Like whether you just do like a Starbucks gift card or something and say, hey, here's a little incentive that I do. So if you send the picture to me like that, then that's great. And that kind of gives you some peace of mind, and maybe that gets them thinking about making sure they put your name down, because they know they're going to get something like a little, an incentive. And then,
why do you know they actually filled something out? They could do that, like you said, and move in and never even tell you, right?
Yeah.
They think they've done their part, so they're done.
Yeah.
It's another personal way that, you can send them to Starbucks.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
you keep your receipts for, just because you've got all these new agents and stuff here, at some point, are you going to cover like them being a self-employed and taking their receipts and stuff?
Yes.
So we have a DE on tax credits for realtors. And so there's like 101 things that you can claim that I can send you I can send that out, or I can give it to Amber and she can add it to the next.
That'd be great.
Also, Amber's getting a professional photographer to come up here, but if anybody needs a temporary headshot until they can get the professional, I'd be willing to do that as well.
Perfect.
Bring a makeup artist.
No.
We can probably find some filters.
Do a group photo before we.
Definitely so. With this day and age of like Snapchat and stuff, there's all kinds of filters. You don't even have to wear makeup anymore. You can just pick what you want to put on and then take the picture.
I might have to try that out.
Like, wow, you look fly.